My name is Jasmine Langford, and I am 24 years old. I knew something was wrong when the laughter around me began to sound distant and distorted. I was carrying a tray of lemonade across the clubhouse patio during my parents' anniversary cookout when smoke from the grill swept directly into my face. My throat tightened almost instantly. I tried to take a deeper breath, but my chest felt locked, as if an invisible weight were pressing against it. I placed the tray on the nearest table and whispered, "I cannot breathe." My father glanced at me without leaving his chair. "Get up," he said. "Nobody is buying this act." My mother looked toward the guests and muttered that I was always searching for attention. My older sister gave an uncomfortable laugh, but she did not come closer. I tried to walk toward the clubhouse door, hoping cleaner air would help, but my legs suddenly gave out. My hand struck the drink table, sending plastic cups and cans crashing across the concrete. That sound finally made everyone turn. My sister's friend pushed through the crowd and dropped beside me. He watched me struggle to speak, checked my pulse, and quickly moved me away from the smoke. Then his expression changed so suddenly that even my parents stopped talking. "Call 911 now," he shouted. For one long second, the entire patio went silent. My parents stood frozen, their faces turning pale as the guests began staring at them instead of me. I did not understand it yet, but that silence was the beginning of everything they had tried to hide coming apart. Before I tell you what he noticed and why my parents would soon lose far more than control of their celebration, tell me what the weather is like where you are, whether it matches your mood today, and where you are watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The silence broke when my sister's friend grabbed his phone and called 911 himself. His name was Dr. Adrian Monroe, a pulmonologist who had gone to college with my older sister Celeste. I had met him only twice, but in that moment he treated me with more concern than my family had shown in years. He guided me away from the grill smoke, helped me sit upright, and told me not to force words out. My father, Michael Langford, stood near the cornhole boards with a beer in his hand, looking irritated rather than frightened. "She gets anxious," he said. "Give her a minute and she will settle down." Adrian looked up at him. "She cannot finish a sentence. She is wheezing and her breathing is getting worse. This is not something you wait out." My mother, Denise Langford, glanced toward the neighbors gathered around the patio. She had spent weeks planning the anniversary party, from the white tablecloths to the framed photographs of her marriage. Now all she seemed to notice was that people had stopped smiling. "Do we really need an ambulance in front of the clubhouse?" she asked. Adrian stared at her. "Yes, we absolutely do." Celeste finally moved closer, but instead of kneeling beside me, she whispered to Adrian, "Can you keep this calm? People are filming." He ignored her and told the dispatcher exactly what he was seeing. My chest tightened with every breath. My fingertips tingled and the edges of my vision began to darken. Someone closed the grill lid. Another guest brought a chair. The president of the Homeowners Association stepped between me and the crowd and told everyone to give me space. That was when my father realized the situation was no longer private. He set down his beer and approached with a concerned expression that had appeared too late. "Jasmine, sweetheart, try to relax," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I looked at him, unable to decide which hurt more, the pressure in my lungs or the way he suddenly called me sweetheart because witnesses were watching. The paramedics arrived within minutes, pushing through the patio with equipment bags and an oxygen tank. One asked who had been with me when the symptoms began. My mother stepped forward. She became overwhelmed. She has always been sensitive. Adrian interrupted her. She said she could not breathe. Her parents dismissed it. Nobody called until I did. My mother's face tightened. That is not what happened. The HOA president spoke behind her. That is exactly what I heard. For the first time, my parents could not control the story. The paramedics checked my oxygen level, listened to my lungs, and moved me farther from the smoke. They asked about asthma, allergies, medications, and previous episodes. Adrian explained that I had been exposed to heavy grill smoke and developed obvious respiratory distress. He did not diagnose me. He only described what he had observed and how quickly my condition had worsened. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, my father asked whether the ambulance could leave through the service entrance instead of passing the main gathering area. The paramedic looked at him. "Sir, our priority is your daughter's safety." Guests began whispering again. My mother's cheeks turned red. Celeste stared at the ground. I watched them from behind the oxygen mask, and the truth became clear. They were not afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing control of how they looked. Adrian told me he would follow the ambulance in his car. My mother called after me. "We will come when we finish handling things here." The doors closed before I could respond. Inside the ambulance, cold oxygen flowed against my face, while monitors recorded every frantic beat of my heart. My phone vibrated beside me. The first message was from my mother. "Please do not turn this into a neighborhood scandal. We still have guests here." I read it twice before turning the screen face down. As the siren carried me away, one question repeated in my mind. How many times had they watched me struggle and decided their reputation mattered more? The ambulance took me to the nearest community hospital outside Cary, North Carolina. By the time the doors opened, I was trembling so badly that the blanket over my legs shook with me. Nurses moved quickly, connecting monitors, asking questions, and checking my breathing. Nobody accused me of exaggerating. Nobody told me to calm down for someone else's comfort. That difference nearly made me cry. A respiratory therapist gave me treatment while the emergency physician ordered tests to rule out an allergic reaction, heart problems, and other possible causes of the chest pressure. My oxygen level slowly improved, but the tightness did not disappear immediately. The doctor explained that grill smoke appeared to have triggered acute bronchospasm, while fear and stress had intensified it into a severe panic response. "Stress can make respiratory symptoms worse," she told me, "but that does not make them imaginary. What you experienced was real, and calling 911 was appropriate." I wanted to save those words and play them back every time my father called me dramatic. Because of the severity of the episode and the fact that I still felt unsteady, they decided to keep me overnight for observation. Adrian arrived about 20 minutes later. He stayed near the door until a nurse told him he could sit down. He did not pretend to be part of my treatment team. He simply asked whether I wanted him there. I nodded. "I am sorry," he said. "Celeste has made comments about you being dramatic before. I never questioned them. I should have." I looked at him. "You believed her because she is your friend." His expression tightened. "I believed her because I did not think someone would lie about that." The answer hurt, but I appreciated the honesty. While the nurses adjusted my medication, memories surfaced that I had spent years dismissing. When I was 14, I came home from soccer practice coughing so hard I could barely speak. My father said I was looking for an excuse to quit. My mother handed me water and told me not to ruin dinner with another performance. By morning, I felt better, so everyone treated that as proof they had been right. Years later, during college, I worked late building a website for my father's landscaping company while carrying a full class schedule. When I said I was exhausted, he told me family members did not charge each other for favors. My mother said successful adults did not complain every time they felt pressure. I kept working until I became sick during finals week. Even then, Celeste joked that I had found a creative way to get sympathy. Each incident had seemed small on its own. In the hospital, I finally saw the pattern. My pain was acceptable only when it stayed quiet and useful. My phone began buzzing again. My father's message appeared first. "The website update still needs to be finished before Friday. Do not use today as an excuse to delay it." A second message came from my mother. "Post something in the neighborhood group saying you are okay and that it was just anxiety. People are making assumptions." Then Celeste wrote, "Adrian is acting like we neglected you. Please tell him we were only trying not to panic everyone." Not one of them asked whether I could breathe normally. Adrian saw my face change. "What did they say?" I handed him the phone. He read the messages silently. The anger in his expression was unmistakable. "Do you want me to respond to Celeste?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want to see what she says when nobody protects her from the truth." A nurse entered with water and noticed the messages glowing on my screen. She only said, "You are allowed to silence your phone." It sounded like a small permission, but I had never thought of it that way. I had spent my life believing that being a good daughter meant being permanently available. I turned on Do Not Disturb. Later, the doctor returned and told me I needed follow-up testing, reduced exposure to smoke, and a lower stress environment while I recovered. I almost laughed at the last phrase. My family had always insisted I was the source of tension. Now a doctor was telling me my environment might be contributing to my distress. Adrian brought me coffee from the cafeteria. "You do not have to decide anything tonight," he said. He was right, but a decision had already begun forming. My parents had ignored me when I said I could not breathe, then tried to use me before the oxygen mask was off. For the first time, I stopped asking what I could do to make them understand. I started asking what would happen if I stopped serving them. My family arrived the next morning carrying flowers, a card, and a carefully prepared version of concern. My mother entered first, dressed as if she were attending a board meeting rather than visiting her daughter after an emergency. My father followed with his jaw set and his phone in his hand. Celeste came last, holding a paper bag from a bakery. "We brought breakfast," she said, as though food could erase the previous afternoon. Adrian was sitting near the window, and all three of them noticed him immediately. My mother's voice became softer. "Jasmine, honey, you frightened us." I looked at her. "You stayed at the party." Her smile faltered. "We had 30 guests and a situation to manage." My father stepped closer. "The important thing is that you are fine now. The doctor has not said that yet." He waved one hand. "You know what I mean." Celeste placed the bakery bag on the table. "Can we not start fighting? We came to make things right." My mother pulled a folded paper from her purse. "Exactly. We wrote something simple for you to post in the neighborhood group." She handed it to me. The message said I had experienced an anxiety episode, that my family had responded appropriately, and that certain guests had misunderstood the situation. I read it twice. "This is not true." My father's expression hardened. "It is close enough. People are talking about us, and one of my largest landscaping contracts is with this neighborhood." I looked at him. "I was in respiratory distress, and you are worried about grass maintenance." "I am worried about the business that helps this family," he said. "A business whose website I built for free," I answered. Celeste glanced at Adrian. He told everyone it was an emergency before he knew what was happening. Adrian stood slowly. She could not finish a sentence. She was wheezing. Calling 911 was the correct decision. Celeste lowered her voice. "You could still tell people I reacted quickly." "You did not." Her face went pale. I froze. "You told me people were filming." The room became silent. My mother stepped between them. "This is getting out of control." I folded the statement and placed it on the bedside table. "I have 3 questions." My father sighed as if I were wasting his time. I looked at him. "Who believed me when I said I could not breathe?" He said nothing. I looked at my mother. "Who called 911? Her eyes moved toward Adrian. Finally, I looked at Celeste. "Why did every message you sent mention the party, the neighbors, or what Adrian thought, but not whether I was safe?" Celeste opened her mouth, but no answer came. My mother began to cry, just enough to make everyone feel guilty without ruining her makeup. "I cannot believe you are doing this after everything we have done for you." The old response rose automatically. "Apologize, reassure her, tell her she was a good mother." Then I remembered her worrying about the ambulance being seen. My father pointed toward the paper. "Post the statement, finish the website update, and we can deal with the emotional part later." That sentence settled something inside me. "No." He blinked. "What did you say?" I said no. My mother's tears stopped. Celeste stared at me. Adrian remained still. My father leaned closer. You are upset and not thinking clearly. I am thinking more clearly than I ever have. A nurse entered after hearing the raised voices. Her name was Patricia, and she looked directly at me. Would you like this visit to continue? My mother answered first. We are her family. The nurse kept her eyes on me. Jasmine? My hands shook beneath the blanket, but my voice remained steady. No, I want them to leave. My father laughed sharply. This is ridiculous. I also want a restricted visitor list, I continued. Do not give them my room number or medical information. I want to change my emergency contact. My mother's expression shifted from hurt to outrage. You would remove your own mother? You were not here when I needed emergency care. Celeste whispered. Jasmine, you are taking this too far. I looked at her. You thought an ambulance was too far. I think this boundary is appropriate. Nurse Patricia opened the door and asked them to leave. My father initially refused, saying he paid part of my college tuition and had every right to stay. The nurse calmly explained that adult patients controlled their visitor access. My mother turned toward Adrian. Are you proud of this? He answered without hesitation. I am relieved she is protecting herself. They left without security, but the quiet process seemed to humiliate them more than a dramatic confrontation would have. No one argued with them or accepted their version. They simply had to walk out. A minute later, my phone vibrated. My father had sent one final message. Whatever drama you are creating, the website still needs to be finished by Friday. I stared at it until the words stopped hurting and started looking absurd. Then I opened my laptop, found every password, design file, and unpaid project I had completed for his company, and began preparing a professional handover. I was not going to destroy anything. I was going to give him exactly what he claimed to want. His business, without my invisible labor holding it together. A hospital counselor visited me later that afternoon. Her name was Dr. Renee Foster, and she spoke with the kind of patience that made silence feel safe. She asked how often my family dismissed my emotions. I gave the answer I had used for years. They are difficult, but they mean well. She did not challenge me. She simply asked, "What do you hear in your head when you need help?" The answer came immediately. Do not embarrass the family. Stop being dramatic. You owe us after everything we have done for you. Saying those sentences aloud made them sound less like truth and more like instructions someone had planted inside me. Dr. Foster asked what my life would look like if I kept obeying them. I pictured myself 5 years older, still editing my father's website at midnight, designing free advertisements for Celeste's real estate listings, and organizing neighborhood events for my mother because she told everyone I was good with computers. I saw myself attending every holiday, absorbing every insult, and leaving each gathering with a headache and a smile. Then she asked what might happen if I stopped. The answer frightened me because it also felt beautiful. I pictured my apartment in Raleigh with the windows open, plants on the shelves, and no family group chat controlling my day. I pictured charging clients fairly, attending therapy through Zoom, and spending Sundays with people who did not require me to shrink. I opened my laptop and finished the handover package for my father's landscaping company. I included every login, file, and instruction he needed. Then I wrote a short email. Effective immediately, I would no longer provide unpaid design, maintenance, or marketing services. Future work would require a signed contract and payment in advance. I sent a similar message to my mother regarding the HOA newsletter and to Celeste regarding the property brochures I had been designing for free. Within minutes, my phone lit up. My father called the email disrespectful. My mother said I was abandoning the family during a crisis I had created. Celeste wrote that she had a listing presentation on Monday and could not find another designer in time. I did not answer. Instead, I took screenshots and saved them in a folder titled Boundaries. I also created a timeline of the anniversary party, starting with the moment I said I could not breathe and ending with the ambulance leaving the clubhouse. Adrian helped me verify the approximate time of the 911 call. I wrote down exactly what I remembered without exaggeration. The truth was strong enough. That evening, my mother posted in the neighborhood group. She wrote that I had experienced an emotional episode, that my family had done everything possible, and that rumors were unfairly harming my father's business. She did not share my full medical information, but she used my name and implied that I was unstable. Some neighbors offered sympathy. Others had attended the party and began correcting her. The HOA president contacted me privately. She said the board was concerned because my mother had used an official community channel to attack a resident and pressure witnesses. She asked whether I wanted to provide a statement. I sent 4 sentences. I had said I could not breathe. My parents did not call 911. A guest made the call after observing respiratory distress. I was transported to the emergency department and treated. I did not include emotional accusations or years of mistreatment. The facts were enough. Celeste contacted Adrian that night and asked him to tell the HOA that she had been trying to help. He showed me the message because it involved my emergency. His response was brief. He would not make a false statement, and he did not want to continue a friendship with someone who asked him to change what he witnessed. Celeste sent me a furious message blaming me for ruining their relationship. I almost answered, but realized she had never blamed herself for standing beside me while I struggled to breathe. The next morning, the doctor cleared me for discharge with follow-up appointments and instructions to avoid smoke, monitor my breathing, and reduce exposure to conflict. I expected relief. Instead, I felt nervous. Hospitals had rules that protected patients. Outside those walls, my family expected old roles to resume. Before I left, the HOA president called again. My mother had demanded a special meeting to clear the family's name. She wanted me to attend and confirm that everything had been misunderstood. "You do not have to come," the president told me. I looked at the messages, the discharge summary, and the timeline on my laptop. My mother believed I would appear, apologize, and restore her image because that was what I had always done. "I will be there," I said, but I was not going to protect them. I was going to tell the truth once and let them face it. The special HOA meeting took place 10 days after I left the hospital. By then, I could breathe normally again, although sudden smoke or strong emotion still made my chest tighten. I had attended one therapy session through Zoom and spoken with a doctor about follow-up testing. I was not fully recovered, but I was steady enough to walk into the clubhouse without lowering my eyes. Adrian came as a witness, not as my physician. My friend Leah sat beside me for support. Across the room, my parents and Celeste occupied the front row as if they were the injured parties. My mother wore a navy dress and carried a folder of printed messages. My father looked furious before the meeting began. Celeste avoided looking at Adrian. The HOA president explained that the board was reviewing 2 issues. The first was my mother's use of the neighborhood communication system to discuss a resident and pressure witnesses. The second was the pending renewal of my father's landscaping contract, which covered several common areas. My mother stood first. She described the anniversary party as a loving family celebration interrupted by an unfortunate anxiety episode. She said my father and Celeste had tried to keep everyone calm while Adrian created panic. Then she turned toward me. "Jasmine can confirm that we never intended to neglect her." She smiled as though she had rehearsed my answer. My father added that online rumors were threatening the livelihood of hardworking people. Celeste said she had been too shocked to act quickly, but never believed I was in real danger. The HOA president asked whether I wanted to speak. I stood with my timeline in one hand. My legs felt weak, but my voice did not. At approximately 4:17, I told my parents I could not breathe. My father told me to get up because nobody was buying my act. My mother said I was always looking for attention. I tried to reach the clubhouse door and collapsed against the drink table. Adrian moved me away from the smoke and called 911. My family did not make the call. My mother interrupted. "That is your interpretation." The president asked her to wait. I continued. After I was taken to the hospital, my mother's first message asked me not to create a neighborhood scandal. My father asked me to finish unpaid website work while I was still in the emergency department. Celeste asked me to tell Adrian that the family had responded appropriately. I placed printed copies of the messages on the table. I did not read every word aloud. The board members reviewed them in silence. My father leaned toward me. "You are sharing private family communication. You used a public neighborhood group to call me unstable," I said. "I am correcting the record." Adrian was invited to speak next. He explained that he had not diagnosed me at the party. He had observed that I could not complete sentences, was wheezing, and showed signs of respiratory distress after smoke exposure. He said calling 911 had been medically reasonable and that my family delayed because they believed I was acting. The HOA president then gave her statement. She had heard my father dismiss me and my mother complain about the ambulance being seen near the clubhouse. Another neighbor confirmed that my father asked guests not to discuss the incident because it could harm his business. My mother stood abruptly. "Oh, everyone is twisting a terrible moment to make us look cruel." One board member asked whether she had posted that I experienced only an emotional episode after learning I received respiratory treatment. She admitted that she had. "I was trying to stop gossip." "By blaming your daughter," the board member replied. Celeste turned toward Adrian. "You know I froze. You could have told them I was scared." Adrian looked at her. "You did not ask me to explain that you froze. You asked me to say you acted quickly. That was not true." Her face flushed. "So you are ending years of friendship over one mistake?" "I am ending it because you are still asking others to carry the consequences of that mistake." The room became quiet. My father pushed back his chair. "This meeting is supposed to be about the contract, not a family argument." The HOA president nodded. "Then we will discuss the contract. The board has concerns about your conduct toward residents and witnesses, including calls in which you threatened to withdraw services if people did not stop discussing what they saw." My father laughed bitterly. "Maybe I should withdraw the services. You people have no idea how much work my company does for this neighborhood." "Are you formally withdrawing your renewal proposal?" she asked. He looked around, expecting someone to stop him. Nobody did. "Maybe I am." The president consulted the board. "Then we accept your decision and will seek another provider." My father's expression changed instantly. The landscaping contract was one of his largest accounts. He had expected anger to frighten them into backing down. Instead, his own threat had ended the negotiation. "That is not what I meant," he said. "You accepted it in front of the board," the president replied. My mother began crying. "Look what Jasmine has done to us." I felt the old guilt rise, but recognized it before it reached my voice. "I did not tell him to threaten the board. I did not tell you to use the neighborhood system to attack me. I did not ask Celeste to pressure a witness. I am only refusing to clean up what you chose to do." The board voted to remove my mother from her position as chair of community events for misusing official communication and contacting residents to influence their statements. She stared at the result as though consequences were a betrayal. Celeste whispered that the meeting was humiliating. I looked at her. I was humiliated while begging for air. This is accountability. Then I addressed all three of them. I had transferred every file and password related to my father's company. I would no longer work without payment. I would no longer design materials for Celeste or manage my mother's events. They were not permitted to come to my apartment without an invitation. All communication had to be through email for 3 months. Any attempt to harass me, contact my clients, or spread false claims would result in complete no contact. My father stood and pointed at me. "You think you can punish us because you had one panic attack?" Adrian began to respond, but I raised my hand. "I am not punishing you. I am removing myself from a system that depended on my silence and unpaid labor." My mother said, "Family does not keep score. You kept score every time you reminded me what I owed you." My father raised his voice, accusing the board of taking sides and me of sabotaging his company. The clubhouse manager asked him to lower his voice. He refused. When he stepped toward the board table, 2 security officers entered. They did not drag anyone out. They told my family the meeting was over and escorted them to the exit. My mother tried to hide her face. Celeste walked behind them alone. My father continued arguing until the door closed. I remained beside the table, listening to the silence they left behind. It was not the triumphant silence I had imagined revenge might create. It was cleaner than that. For years, their power depended on me fixing every problem they caused. This time, I had stepped aside. My father lost the contract because of his own threat. My mother lost her position because of her manipulation. Celeste lost Adrian's friendship because she asked him to lie. I had not destroyed their image. I had stopped holding it up. The consequences unfolded over the following weeks. My father's company did not collapse, but losing the HOA contract hurt. He had to reduce his advertising budget and hire a professional web designer after discovering how much unpaid work I had done. He told relatives I had cost him thousands of dollars, but the truth was simpler. He had built part of his business around free labor and assumed I would never stop providing it. My mother no longer controlled neighborhood events. Several people who once treated her like the perfect organizer became distant after learning she had pressured them to describe my emergency as an overreaction. She sent me a long email saying she was sorry that I had misunderstood her intentions. Most of it focused on how embarrassed and isolated she felt. I did not respond. An apology that protects the speaker from responsibility is not repair. Celeste's consequences were quieter but personal. Adrian ended their friendship. A few people from her social circle had been at the cookout and knew she had worried about videos before calling for help. She accused me of turning everyone against her, but I had not spoken to her friends. They had watched her choices. 3 weeks after the meeting, she sent an email without excuses. She admitted that she had joined our parents in mocking me because it kept their criticism away from her. She wrote that she had been more afraid of looking foolish than of losing me. It was the first honest thing she had said. I replied with 2 sentences. I appreciated this specific apology, but I was not ready to restore contact. Accountability could begin without immediate forgiveness. Therapy helped me understand that distance did not make me cruel. My therapist taught me to recognize the physical signs that appeared before panic overwhelmed me. I learned breathing exercises, scheduled follow-up care, and stopped treating rest like a moral failure. Adrian checked in occasionally, but he never tried to become the center of my recovery. He remained a friend who had acted when action was necessary. I also leaned on Leah, co-workers, and people I had neglected while constantly solving family problems. For the first time, my support system did not depend on one person rescuing me. My apartment began to feel different. I bought 2 plants for the window and moved my desk away from the wall. I raised my freelance rates and signed 3 clients who respected my time. On Sundays, I stopped attending the family brunch my mother had called mandatory. Sometimes I slept late. Sometimes I worked at a coffee shop. Sometimes I did nothing. Each ordinary choice proved my life belonged to me. My parents respected the email-only boundary for less than a month. One Saturday morning, the building intercom buzzed. My father said he and my mother were downstairs and wanted 5 minutes. I looked through the lobby camera and saw them beside the entrance with groceries and another letter. The old Jasmine would have opened the door to avoid a scene. Instead, I spoke through the intercom. You were told not to come here without an invitation. My mother leaned toward the speaker. We are trying to fix this. Then start by respecting the boundary. My father said I was acting childish. I told them I was ending contact for 6 months because they had ignored the agreement. When they refused to leave, the building manager asked them to go. I watched from upstairs as my mother stared at the windows, hoping I would appear. I stepped away before she could see me. Blocking their numbers was painful. Peace did not erase grief. I still mourned the parents I hoped they might become. I still wanted a mother who would hear the words "I cannot breathe" and move toward me instead of checking who was watching. I still wanted a father who cared more about my pulse than his contract. Accepting that they might never become those people was harder than confronting them. Healing required me to stop building my future around their potential. 6 months later, my breathing was stable, my business was stronger, and my home felt safe. I hosted a small dinner for friends. Nobody asked me to serve everyone. Nobody mocked me when I stepped outside for air after smelling smoke from another building. Leah quietly closed the window, and the conversation continued without making me feel like a burden. That moment taught me something the anniversary party never could. Real care does not require a dramatic speech. It appears in small decisions to believe, protect, and respect another person. The deepest lesson I carried from that experience was not that every difficult family should be abandoned. It was that love without safety, respect, or accountability cannot demand unlimited access. Panic symptoms are real. Breathing trouble and chest pressure should never be dismissed because stress may be involved. Seeking medical help is not weakness, and asking for support is not attention-seeking. Boundaries are not revenge in the cruel sense. They are instructions for how others may remain in your life. When those instructions are repeatedly ignored, distance can become necessary. Forgiveness does not automatically restore trust. An apology is only the beginning. Consistent behavior creates repair. My family believed the worst thing I could do was embarrass them. They were wrong. The most powerful thing I did was stop protecting them from the results of their behavior. I did not spread rumors, damage my father's company, destroy my mother's reputation, or end Celeste's friendship. I told the truth, withdrew my labor, and chose peace. Sometimes the most satisfying form of revenge is not making someone suffer. It is building a life so healthy that their control no longer has a place in it. So tell me honestly, when keeping the peace requires you to remain silent about the harm being done to you, would you continue protecting the family's image, or would you finally begin protecting yourself?
Thank you for being here through the final moment of the story. All events are fictional and made only for entertainment and dramatic reflection. We hope it reminds you that setting a boundary may feel uncomfortable at first, but living without one can cost you far more than a few difficult conversations.